GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe had a wild ride in 2020, but did either one stay on the bull long enough to get a score? GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe are both specialty retailers that have an emphasis on brick and mortar locations. GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe both sell health and wellness products. GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe both faced challenging COVID-19 business landscapes. But despite those similarities, if you look at the trajectories heading into 2021, you might think these businesses are completely different. So the point of this video here is really to give you guys like a year in review recap for both GNC and the Vitamin Shoppe. I think a lot of things happened throughout the year. And if you are anybody that's thinking about either working with, partnering with GNC or the Vitamin Shoppe, a lot of those variables changed. A lot of those things maybe made the business less or more valuable to you. And you might not have been able to keep up with all of the news that have happened throughout the year. So hopefully this gives you guys a recap. Hopefully it gives you guys a bunch of value as you are building your partnership strategy or sales channel strategies throughout 2021. So I'm going to start with GNC first. Heading into 2020, they had quite a grim picture already kind of dealing in what they had to deal with. They were in the midst of a very drastic store optimization plan. They also were dealing with some cost-cutting strategies. They were scrounging around, honestly, for any assets possible that they could sell off that they already hadn't sold off. And they were facing kind of a very big mountain of debt that was not going to be paid down by operations or really any assets that they had in their business. It seemed like this was something they were dealing with for years. I know that I wasn't the only one that could see that they were not going to be able to pay down this debt, but for whatever reason, they were going to figure out a way to either come up with some extensions again, or maybe pull the rabbit out of the hat and have some type of massive restructuring plan. Now, the first 2 months of 2020, things were going relatively well for GNC. Business was going well, not enough to solve the problems I just kind of talked about, but everything seemed to be going okay. And then March rolled around, COVID-19 really took a strong hold in the United States. You would have thought GNC, if anybody, would have had the best plan of action ready for this because their biggest shareholder was a Chinese-owned pharmaceutical company. They have operations, a joint venture in China. They have already dealt with this. They already knew what was going on, and they should have been kind of aware of what was happening and what could happen in the United States. But regardless, restricted living situations, a lot of things happening with state and local governments really ratcheted down on GNC's business as a whole because they have a good amount of their store fleet in mall locations. Most of those had to close. There also was some restrictions in terms of operating in some certain cities, so they had to close some of those locations. And then in the bright spot of GNC, their international operations for a while have been great for them. That also struggled almost to a further extent because some of those countries really dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic in a very extreme way that really closed up a lot of operations on the business side. So GNC was really looking at hanging on for dear life, doing the best they can in terms of operations. And as some of the restrictions started to loosen into spring, heading into summer, GNC had to make that final decision to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy in June of 2020. There was a little bit of drama that kind of happened throughout that, but Harbin Pharmaceutical, their largest shareholder, decided to buy GNC out of the bankruptcy process for, I think, a little bit over $700 million. It finalized at the end of October. In the post-bankruptcy, GNC hopes to be much leaner, both from a store fleet perspective. I think 800 to 1,200 more locations they're planning on closing. All of the Canadian operations, or at least all but a few stores, will be closed. They also are cutting a bunch of corporate positions. They are closing a Pennsylvania distribution center and a number of other things to hopefully grow GNC by subtraction. And they're also doing this without their CEO. I think they have replace their CEO or maybe are doing this by more of a collaboration in terms of some of the C-suite members right now. But overall, operations-wise, GNC had quite the wild ride. Now, if we're looking at this from a financial perspective, GNC is no longer a public company. So we're not able to look at this from their last reporting of Q3. But in 2020 Q2, they had a pretty bad report. I think they were down close to 36% year over year and had a annualized run rate in terms of their revenue of just $1.4 billion. Now, if we look at this from merchandising, now they did some things from a macro perspective, just like how they always do it. That's the GNC way. I'll explain some other things that maybe are hopefully going to help them turn the corner. But if you look at just two main things that GNC seems to always focus on with their merchandising. One is they love like star-studded exclusives. And GNC had a few of those. Their first one was TV personality Jay Glazer. They announced that they were doing an exclusive line of supplements with him, I think in January, but it didn't launch until this past December. They also have Luster and Loom, which is partly owned, I think the US operations are partly owned by Khloe Kardashian. They also are the exclusive partner for Goat Fuel, which is an energy drink that was created by arguably the best wide receiver in NFL history, Jerry Rice. And then on the other side, GNC is notorious for really focusing on their private label. And that was something they continue to do, and they continue to kind of try to strengthen that. That is now over 50% of their business. This year, they decided to take a page from one of their favorite exclusive third-party brands, Ghost Lifestyle, and worked on some exclusive licensed flavors with the Girl Scouts of America. I think they're cookie flavors, and then also Jolly Rancher. Continue to strengthen and build out the assortment and some of the different kind of extensions with their namesake GNC private label brands, also Slim Vance and their Beyond Raw sports supplement brand. But something they launched in late 2019, a private label energy drink, Mad Pony, that was short-lived. I think that one has bit the dust sometime within 2020 without much fanfare at all. GNC did lose two of their largest sports supplement exclusives, kind of one and a half, I guess, technically right now. Alani Nu, which they've talked about in so many different conference calls over the last year that they've been a part of the GNC exclusive brands, that is no longer exclusive. They have moved on. And then Ghost Lifestyle, which their powders, capsules, pills, the traditional supplements are still exclusive to GNC in terms of the retail space, but the Ghost energy drinks are now offered in other physical retailers outside of GNC. Now, what I was mentioning a little bit before in terms of like merchandising maybe changing a little bit is that because GNC had to focus so much of their attention online this year, they actually were able to maybe notice some different trends that hopefully will be able to be applied in store. And GNC has had, I think over the last maybe 10 or 20 years, kind of gotten a bad reputation, and a lot of customers really assume it as this like, muscle store or something that maybe just people that work out only, younger kids or something go and shop at. And that's mostly because the back of the house merchandising, which is mostly sports supplements, have been the biggest merchandising category for GNC. That's been the focus. That's also been what's really driven the business. And that's really affected a lot of the growing merchandising categories of, wellness products or maybe beauty adjacent type products like Nutra Cosmetics. But because of online sales, they have noticed that those things picked up. Those wellness categories have seen a 50% year over year growth online for GNC. And GNC also leaned into testing kits. They have the GNC for You, which is a DNA kit that I think aligns with some of the personalized vitamins. And then they also launched a COVID-19 at-home testing kit. A post-bankruptcy GNC is looking to reinvent itself. It did start that in Q4 with a much smaller and more profitable store fleet. GNC is focusing on a few areas domestically. First one is to increase their wholesale distribution, Because of some changes with the contract with Rite Aid, there is no longer like a proximity exclusivity. So GNC can go out and create different strategic retail partnerships to get their private labels and maybe even some other inventory into some areas that they think would really be beneficial to building up the GNC brand. The second is growing their e-commerce. I think the last time I looked, about a $210 million online business. I think it's about 15% of GNC's 2020 revenue. That should continue to grow, and they are seeing an expansion in terms of like the customer profiles that are shopping on the GNC website. It's no longer, the 18 to 34 males. You're seeing a lot more, maybe 24 to 45-year-old females shopping for different products. And they're hoping that some of that online differentiation in terms of customers will move into an in-store experience. So you're going to see some of that in-store merchandising change up. You're going to see blurring of lines between sports and wellness and health, beauty, and a lot of different things that hopefully are going to change that long-standing culture of what people think about GNC stores. Looking at even further changing some of the in-store experience, the biggest kind of like public change or like industry change that people have been aware of is that GNC is changing the way they're doing their like spiffs or commissions, and they're no longer allowing brands to be able to offer up to like 5 or 8% of retail. Now are capped at a certain wholesale number that's put into a bucket based around your sales. So it's really like eliminating the sales mentality that people are only pushing things that are good for them, not necessarily good for the customer. That solution-based culture now, hopefully it's going to take some time for them to be able to kind of honestly change over a lot of the staff probably to make sure they're aligned with that new incentive. But if they're able to pair that new solution-based type of selling experience with an engaging, modern, relevant, and interactive store, it might be able to reinvigorate GNC throughout 2021 and into the future. Now, shifting gears here, I want to talk a little bit around the Vitamin Shoppe and their year in review. Starting operationally, they did have some similarities to GNC really. They are dealing with like a smaller store optimization plan in terms of numbers, a smaller cost-cutting initiative. But if you're thinking about this from like a comparative percentage standpoint, they were actually probably pretty similar. But the difference was that the Vitamin Shoppe just finished up being acquired by Franchise Group in December of 2019. So they were walking into 2020 with like reinvigoration, new expectations, new owners, and those new owners obviously having maybe different ideas or different deeper pockets in terms of where they would like to spend money or take on risk. The Vitamin Shoppe also had just announced, I think in October 2019, a new updated, reinvigorated store concept. I do believe that was put on hold. They were not rolled out because of the COVID-19 business environment, just too much uncertainty, too much risk. You didn't want to spend a lot of money in that area. But they did add some of the elements that did become a lot more valuable because of COVID-19. So a lot of like the contactless or omni-channel type of initiatives. Some of those things that were going to be into the refreshes of the store locations did still get added, and that was mostly because it was needed, and it was something that if it was not done, sometimes those stores maybe were not able to operate or were not able to maybe get customers, that people weren't not interested in shopping with them. So some of those things like contactless payments, improvements to some of like the mobile checkouts, also some of the omni-channel fulfillment areas in terms of e-commerce. Vitamin Shoppe, somewhere around 20% of their sales are done through e-commerce. If you also add some of those omni-channel areas like buy online and pick up in store, that is up to 27% of their sales. And then Vitamin Shoppe also announced that they were doing third-party on-demand fulfillment with a partnership with Instacart. Now, something that might normally not be mentioned and overlooked is that because the Vitamin Shoppe is no longer a standalone public company, and they're kind of shielded behind what the franchise group does in terms of how they report their earnings. They do report the top line revenue of Vitamin Shoppe, and they do kind of bucket all their expenses together just so you can understand like the net profitability. But individual cost elements and footnotes and disclosures and all other things that you would need to do as a public company, Vitamin Shoppe can hide behind that. They do not need to do that. The franchise group can really just like shield the public investor community away from some of the things that the Vitamin Shoppe needed to do to reinvent their business during 2020 and stay relevant. And that ability to be fast, take on more risk, kind of do things in the shadows was imperative to how well the Vitamin Shoppe did comparative to GNC in 2020. Just at the end of 2020, something that I said right off the bat when I noticed who bought the Vitamin Shoppe, or it was announced in the late summer of 2019, was that the Vitamin Shoppe is looking to start franchising their business in 2021. But I have not seen the franchise documents yet, and I assume that they're probably going to announce those in the next earnings report. Looking at financials as a whole, like I said, they don't really report a lot of things, but in the first 9 months, the Vitamin Shoppe was only down about 3% year over year in terms of their revenue, and they have an annualized run rate now of about $1.1 billion in sales. Looking at merchandising for the Vitamin Shoppe, you might think that they follow some similarities, and in some cases, maybe you could in terms of some of the star-studded exclusives. They did have an exclusive partnership with Jocko Willenick in terms of his like energy drink Jocko Fuel. They also work with Martha Stewart in terms of her CBD lineup. They also fully branded their like CBD HQ experience. They are, in terms of assortment, probably the largest national retailer in terms of CBD products. They hired a chief merchandising officer that is helping them in terms of some of the premiumization of the retailer in terms of their merchandising. Also, their chief merchandiser has a background in beauty. So you can kind of see where this is going in terms of merchandising. And COVID-19 also really brought to light some of these beauty adjacent type of products that did really well at the Vitamin Shoppe. So things like sleep, relaxation, and sexual wellness, all those things did extremely well for the Vitamin Shoppe. They also have done extremely well in plant-based proteins. I know that their sports supplement buyer talked a lot about that during a conference that I attended in 2020. The Vitamin Shoppe finally started to transform and reinvigorate their private label that has struggled over the last couple of years. They put a lot of emphasis in that. I think they're going to continue to spend a lot of time and effort into building the Vitamin Shoppe brand. It is a brand that unfortunately doesn't live too strongly outside of their stores and outside of the US in general. And I think that they're focusing a lot of attention to try to do that. The before mentioned Alani Nu and Ghost Lifestyle, they are now offered into the Vitamin Shoppe. Now Ghost Lifestyle is just the energy drinks like I mentioned, but Alani Nu is offering all of their products to the Vitamin Shoppe, and they are also adding some exclusive flavors and variants to the Vitamin Shoppe. Keto has slowed for the Vitamin Shoppe. They've mentioned this. They have really branded that out like the Keto HQ, similar to the CBD HQ. I don't necessarily think that keto is dead. It's just that it's matured and disseminated across larger retailers. Something to just kind of pay attention to in the future if CBD does become federally legal. I don't think it will be in 2021, but maybe it is. Just how that also disseminates and matures across the retail landscape. And then right after the year end, which technically I guess doesn't count for this video, they did announce a partnership with WW, which was known previously as Weight Watchers. They are having co-branded vitamin packs. I think there's going to be some merchandising in terms of protein items that WW is going to have into the stores of the Vitamin Shoppe. I think they're also offering maybe some membership signups. I think that's a great partnership between two like-minded businesses that are both trying to demystify and democratize the health and wellness experience. Also want to talk a little bit around leadership. I believe there's a stark difference between what Sharon Leidy did, the CEO of Vitamin Shoppe, comparable to the leadership team at GNC during a global health pandemic when people were looking for answers. People were looking for trusted voices in the market. And Sharon Leidy was out there on the financial newses, the general digital platform. She was speaking and talking to really anybody that would be able to paint the Vitamin Shoppe in a really good light in terms of how they can offer some solutions to this global health pandemic and just preventative nutrition and wellness solutions and just a lot of things that the Vitamin Shoppe could do. Also, just how well they were dealing with cleaning their stores and being safe, and it was providing a great retailing experience for people to come in, and we were open for business, and how we needed to be an essential business. That all was something that Sharon was out there doing, and I think that that was really important. I think people were looking for faces that they trusted, people that were giving them the answers that they were seeking. They didn't want you to be hiding in the corner and just hoping that things would blow over. I think a lot of cases we're going to look at this years in the future, we're going to look back and we're going to point to certain businesses that say, oh, they were using this as a defining moment. They weren't hiding from it. They weren't trying to just get by. And I think that this is going to be one of those examples if we are kind of comparing GNC and Vitamin Shoppe of their 2020 years. I think that just the inclusion of the Vitamin Shoppe in the Healthy Living Coalition, it's extremely important. If you've noticed some of the disproportionate amount of illnesses and deaths of non-white Americans with COVID-19 and maybe what are the root causes of that? A lot of that is coming from underserved communities, health, wellness, fitness, a lot of information, a lot of programs, a lot of available services that are not maybe equally provided across communities. This is a coalition that the Vitamin Shoppe joined and is hopefully going to help be a part of improving a lot of those things. And I think, again, consumers are looking for people that are out there trying to help some of these issues that were brought to light in 2020. So I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of year in review. If you had to go to the judges' scorecard, I'm going to guess that only the Vitamin Shoppe probably would get a score in terms of bull riding standards. I don't know if anybody watches the PBR or anything like that, but the Vitamin Shoppe would be going to the scores card. I think that unfortunately GNC probably would have been thrown off by the bull before they've gotten to the scorecard. I think GNC has been very kind of secretive in terms of a lot of the plans, a lot of the things that maybe they set out in place, how those are progressing. From outward looking in, some of those things maybe haven't moved as quick as I thought. I know they're still kind of trying to deal with a lot of things with the bankruptcy, but now as a private company, they can move a lot quicker. So I'm hoping that GNC is going to be able to do very well in 2021 and in the future. I think the Vitamin Shoppe is set up extremely well. They're really focusing on not only just the merchandising and making that unique in terms of a specialty retailer, but what can they do to help all of the things outside of those products? How do they actually help people get to their goals? How can they provide a special shopping customer experience that will keep bringing people into the doors or keep shopping online with them? I think that the Vitamin Shoppe does have probably a better eye on that. I think they have a better strategy to achieve that. That is a moving goal that changes every day. So anybody that gets complacent on either side of this, GNC or Vitamin Shoppe, are going to continue to struggle because COVID-19 really brought a lot of things to light in terms of the retailing world, what the future could look like. And if you're not positioned correctly for that future, you're going to struggle regardless of how long you've been in business or how many stores you have or a number of other kind of things you can look at in terms of old retail metrics. The market has spoken and the market doesn't care. You either add value to the customers in their current set of needs, you offer them those in how they'd like it, when they'd like it, whatever that choose your adventure shopping experience is with consumers. They have the control right now. They have the options. They can switch as quick as they would like, and it doesn't really cost them anything. So retailers really need to step up to the plate. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.